get out there and do it, and let's be shepherds and not sheep. We have in this country 300 million patriots and not 300 million victims.
The White House used to be a symbol of power. Every day, it trends more and more to just looking like an assisted living facility.
I support Republicans so we can take the House back in 2022, because that is the single most important thing for us to be a check and balance of the craziness that's going on in Washington right now.
Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. We are honored to be joined by one of the great conservatives in the House of Representatives, Congressman Jim Banks, who is chairman of the Republican Study Committee and truly has one of the most outstanding ACU ratings in Congress. Congressman Banks, thanks for joining us again.
Hey, Matt, good to be with you.
There is so much happening, but I wanted to jump first into this strange role. It's almost like the Twilight Zone, this role that you should be having with this committee that was set up to study the events of 1/6 and the strange ahistoric chain of events. Is it true that we actually have a committee called by the House of Representatives where the Republican leader has no say-so who serves on that committee?
Well, it's absolutely true. Kevin McCarthy chose me, Jim Jordan, and a few others to serve as the minority members of the January 6th Commission. When Pelosi kicked me and Jim Jordan off, by the way, the reason that she did, Matt, is because after McCarthy chose me to be the ranking member of the committee and Jim Jordan to serve on the committee, we started immediately asking these obvious questions about the security at the Capitol and the lack of leadership in the top ranks of the Capitol Police who report to the Speaker of the House. And Benny Thompson, who's the chairman of the committee, said Nancy Pelosi is off limits. He said nothing is off limits, but Nancy Pelosi is off limits. And when we started asking questions about why she didn't lead better at the Capitol, why the Capitol was left unsecured on January 6th, even though there were intelligence reports that told us something dangerous could happen that day, that's when she said Jim Banks and Jim Jordan aren't allowed to serve on the committee. So McCarthy pulled everybody on the Republican side off the committee. As you know, Pelosi tapped her friend Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger to serve. And even though they have an R next to their name, they were chosen by the Democrats to serve on this committee. But as the committee moves forward in its work, it becomes clearer and clearer every single day that this is a witch hunt. This is designed purely to take down the Democrats' political opponents on the Republican side, to demonize Donald Trump and anyone who supported Donald Trump. And there's a key piece of evidence that proves that's actually in a mainstream political outlet today, Politico, who reported on a Capitol Police whistleblower who actually he offered to meet with the January 6th commission, and it took them a long time to take him up on it. Actually, I was complaining that they weren't taking this whistleblower up on it, and so finally they did last week. And after he met with him, he complained, this is all reported in Politico this morning, he complained that the committee is not at all interested in the security breakdown of the Capitol Police and at the Capitol on January 6th. They're only focused on taking down their political opponents, which just goes to prove how much of a witch hunt investigation this really is.
So the reason why congressional committees have a majority and a minority is because the American people need to know the facts. So what you're basically saying is Pelosi is engaged in a massive cover-up over the security decisions she made around the Capitol on 1/6, and that's why she doesn't want any Republican on that committee who could expose the decisions that were made.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, when we started asking these questions about why the Capitol Police rank and file Capitol Police officers were telling us that they weren't prepared for what happened on January 6th, they weren't trained for what might happen on January 6th, and they weren't equipped for it. They didn't have the equipment on January 6th, the basic equipment that they might need for a riot or for something dangerous that might occur at the Capitol. So those are obvious questions that a true investigation about January 6th would look into and ask, and this commission does not want to go anywhere near that, because at the end of the day, it implicates the leadership of Nancy Pelosi and others who oversee the United States Capitol Police. And they don't want to go there. They want this to be all about politics. Also, Matt, I mean, look at who this commission has sent subpoenas to go after. And they're going after people in the Trump orbit, other citizens who planned a permitted and legal rally on January 6th. That's who they're sending subpoenas to. It's not, they're not looking into what caused the breakdown of security at the Capitol. They're going after Trump appointees and anyone in the Trump orbit and just citizens who planned a legal permitted rally on January 6th. That's who they want to go after. They don't want to talk about the real issues that occurred on January 6th with the systemic breakdown of security at the Capitol.
Look, this is completely true, and obviously my wife, Mercy, who's not with me today, worked with a lot of these people when she was at the White House and when she was at President Trump's reelection campaign. And we have gotten calls at the House from people who are weeping over the fact that, you know, they feel like they're being politically persecuted. So what we've done here is we've set up a First Amendment fund to try to counsel these people. You know, we have these victims of cancel culture, and I think 1-6 is part of this. They're being canceled because of their political views. We're being told you can't attend a rally or organize a rally to express your political views because they're going to say, well, your views, encourage an insurrection or however their perverted thinking is. And so I guess my question for you, Congressman Banks, we've never done this before. We've never had a Speaker of the House not allow the minority to have representation on a committee. And this is on a serious topic. The presidential election in 2020, we should never have an election like that ever again where we break all the rules. What could you do? You're a brave person, both in, as you served in the military and now when you're in Congress now. Are you thinking about taking some extraordinary steps to make sure that the American people aren't abused in this way?
Yeah, Matt. Jim Jordan and I and a few others on the Republican side who had planned to be a part of this commission before we were kicked off by Nancy Pelosi. We're continuing our work, and we've got our heads down. We're interviewing Capitol Police officers about what happened that day, others about what happened on January 6th, and we will publish a report, and it will be a serious report about and make recommendations. But at the end of the day, if this commission was truly focused on what happened on January 6th, it would put out a report to make recommendations of how to fix the systemic breakdown of leadership at the Capitol Police, to prepare for situations like this, so it will never happen again at the United States Capitol. But that's not what they're doing. It's a political witch hunt. But that's what we are doing. That's on our side. We're continuing to do our work, and we will make recommendations in the months to come after we perform. We plan to do dozens of interviews with people who were on hand that day. But it's bigger than that, Matt. To your point, and we're a year away from a midterm election. When we get the majority back, and Jim Jordan is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House, we need to hold people accountable who abuse their power in this term, like those who are actively participating in this witch hunt. We need to hold them accountable for their abuse of power. And I promise you, I guarantee you, Jim Jordan, myself, and others, that's exactly what we're going to do. But that's still a year away. So this witch hunt is going to last for another year because the Democrats have been very outspoken. They've been very transparent about this. Their midterm election strategy is January 6th, is using this fake commission to tear down Republicans. It's not going to work. The American people have already, they see it for what it is. It's not going to work, but they've made it clear that this is their political strategy. And every step of the way, there are those of us here in Congress who are fighting back, exposing this for what it is, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
A couple of suggestions I have for you from the bleachers, right? You've got the voting card, you've got the tough job, but I would consider, with your legal counsel, bringing in some of these people who have already had to go before the committee and testify, because I think you need to ascertain, is this really about security around the council, the Capitol? Is this really about trying to go after people who are violent? Or is it about just another witch hunt to try to find any dirt on Donald Trump as he plays such a big role politically? So maybe that's something you guys can consider.
A great point, Matt, and we will do that. We've been in touch with some of those who have been drugged through this process, and by the way, it sickens me to hear stories about innocent people who didn't do anything unlawful or wrong on January 6th who are being dragged through the mud. Their lives are being destroyed. Their reputations are being destroyed by Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Benny Thompson, and Liz Cheney. It sickens me. And there has to be accountability for that when we get the majority back and we're in a position to do that. But in the meantime, your point is valid. We need to expose this process for what it is, and no better way to do that than hearing from some of those whose lives are being ruined and their reputations are being dragged through the mud.
I can tell I was a victim of this when I worked for President George W. Bush. I was his political director and his deputy political director, including during a presidential re-election campaign. And for years after my service, I was brought up for this investigation or that investigation. It impoverishes the young staffer. It could encourage a young staffer to just run away from politics and never be involved again. And it's asymmetrical. Republican staffers go through this persecution by prosecution, persecution by having to hire lawyers and testify. We never do the same thing to the other side. So when you get this power, and I think it's going to happen, and Jim Jordan gets that gavel, what are the chances that the Biden Attorney General indicts the people that you send subpoenas to who are not responsive to those subpoenas? What are the chances they get indicted?
It's a good, obviously, if the shoe is on the other foot, the Biden DOJ, they play by their own rules. They're hypocritical about everything that they do. As you know, for the past almost year, the Biden administration, they've lied to us about everything. And so do the Democrats in Congress. So there's no question about it. And right now, as we're on the eve of winning back the majority, I'm confident that we will, Matt. We have to have an agenda ready for what we're going to do to help American families who are suffering because of the Biden agenda. But also on top of that, we need to have a platform ready to go of ways that we're going to hold people accountable who were never held accountable before, from those who push the Russian collusion hoax to those who are abusing their power on this January 6th commission. Let me say this as well. These Democrats are the attack on freedom of speech and the expression of speech that these Democrats have carried out is something that is unforgivable, something that I hope the American people see it for exactly what it is. And when we have a responsibility, we have a moral duty when we get the majority back. And Matt, I hope that you will hold us accountable for it. I know that you will, to hold people accountable that weren't held accountable before.
I agree with you. We're allies in this cause, Congressman Banks, and we really appreciate your voice. I want to encourage you to continue to be strident on this outrageous abuse of your rights. Think about it. You won a congressional race fair and square. You have a voting card. You are being denied your rights as a lawful member of Congress by Nancy Pelosi. It seems to me that you have a constitutional claim, just like the person who's been fired for his job for not taking a vaccine, or somebody who's called a racist because they don't ascribe to CRT in a school setting, like all of this kind of un-American activity that's happening. I really encourage you. And the other thing is, they are saying that we're violent and that our supporters are violent. But they are the ones that never condemned the violence that took a hold of our cities, the summer before last. And that, to me, when you have dead cops, dead kids in streets, crime out of control, and they're trying to flip the script and say, you're the violent one, Jim Banks. Your supporters are the violent one. I say we don't let them get away with that.
It's so true. So well put. I mean, the double standard here is so thick and obvious. I also think they spend so much time on January 6th and distracting from what happened in the election last November, Matt, when they went out and unconstitutionally, illegally changed the rules prior to the election to help to get Joe Biden elected to the White House to defeat Donald Trump. They want to do everything that they can to distract from that. It's why I recommend Molly Hemingway's book, Rigged. It's such an important read that exposes in a better way than I've seen anybody else expose it, how the Democrats manipulated the election in 2020. The Democrats don't want to talk about it. Their friends in big tech, they don't want to talk about it because it was so obvious what they did. And that, too, is something that we have to go back to when we get the majority to hold people accountable who broke the law, who unconstitutionally changed election rules to get their guy elected. That should never happen again in the future of this country.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and keep saying that. And thank you for saying that. And how do people follow you if they want to keep up with what you're doing with this important work on pushing back on Pelosi's propaganda on 1-6? How can people follow you?
Well, I got my Twitter account back. So
you're out of jail.
Thanks. I'm out of Twitter jail, which is another conversation for another day about how we hold these big tech companies accountable for their censorship of those of us on the right. But go to @RepJimBanks, but also follow our important work at Republican Study Committee. I'm so proud of what Republican Study Committee is doing to chart the course for the future of the conservative movement and the Republican Party on Capitol Hill. So at Republican Study or Republican Study Committee on Facebook, we're putting out important material every day there as well.
So as you all know, please follow my beautiful wife at Mercedes Schlapp. You can follow me at @mschlapp. You can follow CPAC at CPAC. And Jim Banks, you're going to definitely join us in Orlando in February, we hope. We need to have you there. We need an update.
I can't wait.
Great. Thank you, Jim Banks, for joining us on CPAC Now, America Uncanceled, and thank you all for watching. Hey everyone, this is Matt Schlapp with CPAC, and it's my privilege to tell you that we've got a very important project that we've just announced, the First Amendment Fund. It's a brand new fund that we've created through our criminal justice reform efforts to raise money to take care of you, Americans who are being canceled and desecrated out there around the country. We know it just happened in Virginia, where parents were called domestic terrorists by the Biden administration, where people who just want to express their political views are canceled left and right. Now we have this terrible specter of a vaccine mandate where you can lose your job or be prevented from going to a restaurant or go to school according to your vaccination status. These are all the things that are happening in this country that are making people realize that America is in a fight to defend the principles that have made her great. If you want to be involved in this important effort, please go to conservative.org, click the link for the First Amendment Fund. Please donate to this C3 to help these victims across the country, including those who are just involved in politics, to make sure they have the legal representation they need to be able to live their great American life.